The President of Ukraine is the head of state of Ukraine. The President represents the nation in international relations, administers the foreign political activity of the state, conducts negotiations, and concludes international treaties. The President is directly elected by the citizens of Ukraine for a 5-year term of office, limited to 2 terms consecutively. The President's official residence is the Mariinsky Palace, located in the Pechersk district of the capital Kyiv. Other official residences include the House with Chimeras and the House of the Weeping Widow, which are used for official visits by foreign representatives. The office of the President of Ukraine, unofficially known as Bankova in reference to the street it is located on, serves as the presidential office, advising the President in the domestic, foreign, and legal matters. Since the office's establishment on December 5, 1991, there have been 6 presidents of Ukraine. Leonid Kravchuk was the inaugural president, serving 3 years from 1991 until his resignation in 1994. Leonid Kuchma was the only president to have served 2 consecutive terms in office. Viktor Yushchenko, Petro Poroshenko, and Viktor Yanukovych served 1 term, with the latter being replaced by acting President Alexander Turchinov, who then also served as chairman of the Ukrainian parliament, on February 21, 2014. Alexander Turchinov was the only acting president in Ukraine's modern history. Unlike in the US, where becoming acting president means immediately receiving all powers and duties of the presidency, in Ukraine the powers of an acting president are severely limited. On June 18, 2015, Yanukovych was officially deprived of the title of President of Ukraine. The government of Ukraine utilizes a semi-presidential system in which the roles of the head of state and head of government are separate, thus the President of Ukraine is not the nation's head of government. The Prime Minister serves as the head of government, a role currently filled by Denis Shmyhal, who took office in March 2020. The current president is Volodymyr Zelensky, who took the oath of office on May 20, 2019. Overview. The President is also the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and heads the National Security and Defense Council, which advises the President, coordinates, and controls executive power in the sphere of national security and defense. According to the Constitution of Ukraine, the President is the guarantor of the state's sovereignty, territorial indivisibility, the observance of the Constitution of Ukraine and human and citizens' rights and freedoms. As with the separation of powers, the President has checks on the authority of Parliament and the judicial system. For instance, any law passed by the Parliament can be vetoed by the President. However, Parliament can override their veto with a 2/3 constitutional majority vote. The President has limited authority to disband the Verkhovna Rada, and nominates candidates for the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Defense in the Ukrainian Cabinet of Ministers. 6 out of 18 of the Constitutional Court judges are appointed by the President. Decisions of the President are subject to review by Ukraine's courts, with the Constitutional Court having the sole authority and power to declare decrees of the President unconstitutional. While in office, the President enjoys the right of immunity. Ukrainian presidents are frequently asked by individual citizens for help in solving their personal problems. In 2012, President Yanukovych received about 10,000 to 12,000 letters from people every month. History. Early leadership. Prior to the formation of the modern Ukrainian presidency, the previous Ukrainian head of state office was officially established in exile by Andriy Levitsky. At first, the de facto leader of the nation was the president of the Central Rada in the early years of the Ukrainian People's Republic, while the highest governing body was the General Secretariat headed by its chairperson. With the proclamation of the last Universal of the UPR dated January 25, 1918 due to military aggression, the Central Rada of the UPR proclaimed its independence from Russia. On April 29, 1918, the Rada elected Mikhailo Hrushevsky as the first president of the Central Rada of the Ukrainian People's Republic, in effect making him the de facto leader of the republic. Although a rather widespread misconception, the state leadership position title varied and none of them had an official presidential title. On April 29, 1918, the Central Rada was arrested and liquidated during a coup d'état initiated by the local German administration to install Hetman Pavlo Skoropadsky, who barely spoke a word of the Ukrainian language. In November of the same year, the Directorate government of the UPR was established as the opposition movement to the Skoropadsky's regime. The Ukrainian People's Republic was soon re-established in December 1918 with Volodymyr Vinichenko as the Directorate's chairperson, serving as the Republic's de facto second president from December 19, 1918 to February 10, 1919. Although really the Directorate was the temporary governing body until the new Ukrainian Constituent Assembly would elect its president. Simon Petliura assumed the representation of the state after Vinichenko's resignation on February 11, 1919, and until Petliura's assassination in Paris on May 25, 1926. Timeline. In exile. After the Soviet offensive in 1920 and brought control of the Ukrainian territory under the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic, the Ukrainian People's Republic was forced into exile. Upon the assassination of Petliura, the control over the state affairs were transferred to the former Prime Minister Andriy Levitsky, who in 1948 created the office of the President of Ukraine. Levitsky served as the first president until January 1954. Stepan Vitvitsky served after Levitsky from January 1954 until his death on October 9, 1965. Following Vitvitsky's death, Ivan Baryony temporarily carried out the presidential authority until the third president in exile Mykola Levitsky was sworn into office. Levitsky served from 1967 until his death in December 1989. Mykola Plavyuk was the last president in exile, serving from December 1989 until his resignation on August 22, 1992, when he ceremonially gave in his presidential authority and state symbols to the newly elected Ukrainian President Leonid Kravchuk at his inauguration ceremony. In his declaration, it is stated that the current Ukrainian state is the legal successor following the state traditions of the Ukrainian People's Republic, establishing the continuity of the republic. Viktor Yanukovych has claimed to be the legitimate president of Ukraine, stating that the events of the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution amounted to a coup and that the impeachment process has not been properly carried out. On October 3, 2014, a Ukrainian official said that Viktor Yanukovych and other former top officials have obtained Russian citizenship in a secret decree signed by Vladimir Putin. If this actually turned out to be true, it would suggest that Yanukovych had given up his claims for presidency, as Ukrainian law does not allow for dual citizenship. Modern presidency. The modern Ukrainian presidency was established on July 5, 1991 by the Verkhovna Rada of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, which formed the office of President of the Ukrainian SSR. During the transitional period until the presidential elections, the chairperson of the Verkhovna Rada was empowered with a presidential authority. With the proclamation of Ukrainian independence from the Soviet Union, the office's official title was changed to President of Ukraine on August 24. In the current constitution, the Ukrainian presidency is defined in Chapter V, Articles 102-112. So far, 5 presidential elections have been conducted. The first election in 1991 was held at the same time as Ukrainians voted to support the Declaration of Independence in the independence referendum. Leonid Kravchuk was elected Ukraine's first president on December 1, 1991. He was elected by a record number of voters with over 19.5 million who wanted him to see as the leader of the state. That number has not been beaten yet. His major opponents were the leader of Rukh Vyacheslav Chornovil and the author of the Declaration of Independence. President Kravchuk remained in office until he resigned as part of a political compromise. A snap election was held in 1994, which was won by Ukraine's former Prime Minister Leonid Kuchma. Kuchma was re-elected for a second term of office in 1999. The 2004 presidential election was marked by controversy with allegations of electoral fraud in the conduct of the second-round runoff ballot between opposition candidate Viktor Yushchenko and the government-backed candidate and former Prime Minister Viktor Yanukovych. After mass nationwide protests, colloquially known as the Orange Revolution, a new election was held on December 26, 2004, in which Yushchenko was declared the winner with 52% of the vote and was subsequently sworn into office on January 23, 2005. Yanukovych again served as prime minister. The 2010 election took place on January 17, with a runoff on February 7 due to a 13 May Constitutional Court ruling striking down October 25 date that the parliament called in April 2009. As a result of this election, Viktor Yanukovych was elected the fourth modern president of Ukraine. After Viktor Yanukovych was removed from power in early 2014 as a result of the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution, the chairperson of parliament Oleksandr Turchinov was appointed to the role of acting president by the Verkhovna Rada in accordance with Article 112 of the Constitution of Ukraine. Oleksandr Turchinov served as the acting president from February 23 until June 7, 2014, and was the only person in Ukrainian history to serve in the role. The acting president of Ukraine lacks many of the executive powers of a president and is only meant to serve for a short time before a new election can take place. During his tenure, Oleksandr Turchinov was addressed as acting president by other Ukrainian politicians and the media. The 2014 election took place on May 25, with entrepreneur Petro Poroshenko winning over 54% of the vote. Yulia Tymoshenko was the runner-up with around 13%. Poroshenko was sworn in as president on June 7, 2014. On June 18, 2015, Yanukovych was officially deprived of the title of President of Ukraine. The 2019 election took place on March 31. With a runoff on April 21. As a result of this election, Volodymyr Zelensky, a former actor and comedian with no prior political experience, has become the sixth president of Ukraine, scoring a record 73.22% of the popular vote in the runoff against the incumbent Petro Poroshenko. The government of Ukraine is based on a semi-presidential system. The President of Ukraine is the head of state while the Prime Minister is the head of government, with the current Prime Minister being Denis Shmyhal. Ukraine is somewhat unusual in that while many countries use a similar system, typically the role of one leader is relegated to being ceremonial. In Ukraine, however, both the Prime Minister and the President have great power and responsibility assigned to their roles. Because the President of Ukraine must approve the appointment of the Prime Minister, the post of President is generally thought of as the more powerful role. Election and eligibility. The Ukrainian President is elected by direct popular vote by Ukrainian citizens who are 18 years and over. The President is elected for a 5-year term of office, limited to 2 terms consecutively. Ukraine's electoral law provides for a 2-round electoral system to elect the president. A candidate must win an absolute majority of all votes cast. If no candidate obtains an absolute majority in the first round of voting, then the 2 highest polling candidates contest a runoff second ballot. According to Chapter V, Article 103 of the Constitution, to be elected president, a candidate must be a Ukrainian citizen who has attained the age of 35, has the right to vote, and has resided in the country for the past 10 years and has full command of the Ukrainian state language. Per the Constitution, regular presidential elections are scheduled to be held on the last Sunday of the last month of the 5th year of the incumbent president's term. If the president's authority has ended pre-term, then the elections must be held within 90 days of the incumbent president's end of term. Candidates seeking election are required to pay a nomination deposit of 2,500,000 hryvnias, which is refunded only to those candidates that progress to the second round of voting. The last presidential elections took place on April 21, 2019. Oath and term of office. According to Article 104 of the Constitution, the President of Ukraine assumes office no later than in 30 days after the official announcement of the election results, from the moment of taking the oath to the people at a ceremonial meeting of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the Ukrainian parliament. If the president is elected following special elections in the event of the previous president's resignation, impeachment, or death, the president-elect must take oath of office within 5 days after the publication of the official election results. The chairperson of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine administers the oath of office. The president-elect recites the Ukrainian oath of office with their hand on the Constitution and the Peresopnisaya Gospels. The Ukrainian text of the oath according to the Article 104 is, Official English translation. I, elected by the will of the people as the President of Ukraine, assuming this high office, do solemnly swear allegiance to Ukraine. I pledge with all my undertakings to protect the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine, to provide for the good of the motherland and the welfare of the Ukrainian people, to protect the rights and freedoms of citizens, to abide by the Constitution of Ukraine and the laws of Ukraine, to exercise my duties in the interests of all compatriots, and to enhance the prestige of Ukraine in the world. After conducting the oath, the President signs the text of the oath of office and transfers it over to the chairperson of the Constitutional Court. Duties and powers. According to Article 102 of the Constitution, the President is the guarantor of state sovereignty and territorial indivisibility of Ukraine, the observer of the Constitution and human rights and freedoms. As stated in Article 106, the President ensures state independence, national security, and the legal succession of the state, also serving as Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the military. Unlike in other semi-presidential systems of government, the President of Ukraine does not belong to the executive branch of government. The Prime Minister is Ukraine's head of government. Thus, the President serves to represent the country in government as a whole, and not any specific branch of government. The President is obliged by the Constitution to prevent any actions of the executive, legislative and judicial branches from taking effect and interfering with the powers of the Constitution. In addition, the President is barred by the Constitution from heading a political party. The President has the power to submit a proposal for the nomination of the Prime Minister. The Verkhovna Rada, through a constitutional majority, has to support the candidacy. Laws passed by the Verkhovna Rada have to be signed by the President to become officially promulgated. The President also has the authority to create consultative, advisory, and other subordinate government bodies for their authority with the use of the state budget. The President may address the nation and the Verkhovna Rada with their annual and special addresses on domestic and foreign issues of Ukraine. They may also call for the conduction of national referendums. The President appoints the heads of local state administrations nominated by the Prime Minister for the period of their presidency. The President represents the country and government as a whole in international affairs. The President has the authority to conduct negotiations and sign treaties on behalf of the Ukrainian government. The right to recognize foreign nations rests solely with the President. The President may appoint and dismiss heads of diplomatic missions of Ukraine to other states and to international organizations and accept the recall of diplomatic representatives to Ukraine of foreign states. Although the President does not head the executive branch of government, he has the right to nominate their candidates for Minister of Foreign Affairs and Minister of Defense in the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. As per the checks and balances system of Ukrainian government, the President can veto laws adopted by the Verkhovna Rada. The President wields high power in the legislative branch of government compared to other European heads of state. They may disband the parliament and call for early elections. This power has only been used twice to date, both times by President Viktor Yushchenko. The legislative branch's check on the president includes the right to overturn a presidential veto with a two-thirds majority vote of the parliament. The president can suspend acts passed by the cabinet of ministers if they contradict the intent of the constitution and challenge such acts with the constitutional court, one-third of which can be appointed by the president. Ukrainian law also allows the president to establish new jurisdictional districts and courts. In addition, the president can select the prosecutor general and head of the security service of Ukraine with the Verkhovna Rada's consent. One half of the Council of the National Bank of Ukraine and the National Council of Ukraine on television and radio broadcasting is reserved for the president to select. In addition to serving as the head of state, the president is the armed forces of Ukraine's supreme commander-in-chief and the head of the National Security and Defense Council, which advises the president regarding national security policy on domestic and international matters. The president can submit a declaration of war to the parliament and order the use of the Ukrainian army and military formations in defense of aggression. Martial law can also be declared on the territory of Ukraine if state independence is deemed in danger. With the confirmation of the Verkhovna Rada, a state of emergency or zones of ecological emergency can also be adopted by the president. Unconditional pardon is reserved exclusively for the president, however, this right cannot be exercised by an acting president. The president can also confer citizens with state orders such as the Hero of Ukraine or confer high military, diplomatic and other ranks and class orders. Citizenship and political asylum in Ukraine can be granted and revoked by the President of Ukraine and as regulated by law. The President of Ukraine appoints heads of regional state administrations after a nomination by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, presidential representatives to the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, Verkhovna Rada, and others. The President does not act as an ex officio head of state of Crimea. The President can revoke any laws passed by the Council of Ministers of Crimea that are deemed to contradict the Ukrainian constitution and can provide the presidential consent on a nominee for Prime Minister of Crimea. The Constitution of Ukraine states that the title of President of Ukraine is preserved by law for the lifetime of the holder, if the President is not removed from the post by impeachment proceedings. List of presidential appointments. Heads of diplomatic missions of Ukraine. Prime Minister of Ukraine, in 1996, 2004 and 2010-2014. Members of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, in 1996, 2004 and 2010-2014. Minister of Defense and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Prosecutor General of Ukraine. Chairperson of the Anti-Monopoly Committee of Ukraine. Chairperson of the State Property Fund of Ukraine. Chairperson of the State Committee of Ukraine on Television and Radio Broadcasting. Members of other central bodies of executive power. Heads of regional government. Members of the Council of the National Bank of Ukraine. Members of the National Council of Ukraine on Television and Radio Broadcasting. The High Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and main military formations. Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Head of the Presidential Administration of Ukraine. Presidential First Aide. Presidential Press Secretary. Supporting agencies. Security agencies. Administrative agencies. Impeachment. In order to impeach the President, they must be suspected of treason to the state or other crimes. A majority in the Verkhovna Rada must support a procedure of impeachment for it to begin. A temporary investigative commission is established by the Parliament for the impeachment investigation. The Commission's final conclusions are considered at a parliamentary meeting. To adopt an impeachment resolution, a minimum two-thirds of the Parliament must support the impeachment procedure. To remove the President from office, a minimum three-quarters of Parliament must support the resolution. The Constitutional and the Supreme Court of Ukraine's conclusions and decisions are considered at the parliamentary meetings. Succession. In the event that a president is incapable of committing their duties as president, the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada becomes the acting president until a new president is elected. The acting president is not given the authority to address the nation and parliament, dismiss the legislative branch and appoint candidates for parliamentary approval of government and judicial posts. The acting president cannot call for a referendum, grant military ranks and state orders and exercise their right of pardon. There are no constitutional provisions for presidential succession in case both the president and chairperson's posts are vacant. Privileges. An election as President of Ukraine garners many privileges of office to an individual. Full legal immunity is granted from all prosecutions and legal proceedings, excluding Parliament's right to impeach the President during their tenure. The title of President of Ukraine itself is protected by law and is reserved for the President for life, unless they have been impeached from office. According to Article 105 of the Constitution, offending the honor and dignity of the President is punishable by law, although no such law has yet been enacted. The President's personal security is provided by the Directory of State Security of Ukraine and a separate presidential regiment provided by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. For their services to the state, the President is allotted a yearly gross salary of 28,000/mo or 336,000/year. All official and state visits made by the President are operated by the Ukraine Air Enterprise presidential airplanes. All required aviation transportation is provided by the state aviation company Ukraina, the headquarters of which is located in Boryspil. Buildings. The Office of the President of Ukraine is an administrative body set up to provide analytical, advisory, and legal assistance to the President. It is colloquially known as Bankova, because it is located on Bankova Street in a massive building across from the House with Chimeras. The head of the office, the chief secretary, acts as the Grey Cardinal for the President in Ukrainian politics. Around 14 state residences are allocated for official presidential use, many of which remain from the Kukma-era presidency. The official ceremonial residence is the Mariinsky Palace in Kyiv. Other state residences include the House with Chimeras and the House of the Weeping Widow in Kyiv, the Yusupov Palace in Crimea and Sinhora in Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast. In addition, each former president has been allotted a state-owned dacha in the former forest preserve in Konkazaspa. A lot of additional material technical, social communal, healthcare provision support is offered by the State Department of Affairs that is created for state officials and subordinated to the President of Ukraine. DUS is a supporting state agency that was restructured in 2000 out of the Presidential Directory of Affairs. Primarily the agency is designated for the President and its administration, while also provides support for the Cabinet of Ministers, Parliament, and other state agencies if budget permits. Official symbols. The President's official state symbols consists of the presidential standard, the seal of the President of Ukraine, the presidential ID card, the presidential collar, and the bulava of the President of Ukraine. The presidential symbols, along with other important presidential documents and media, are contained in the Vernadsky National Library of Ukraine, the country's main academic library. For the President's use, the library prepares documents and analytical materials. Family. The President's spouse is recognized as the First Lady, much in the similar fashion as in other countries, although such a title holds no official and legal responsibility and is often undisclosed. However, during the Yushchenko presidency, his marriage to Katerina Yushchenko and their private life drew a lot of attention from the media. Apart from Katerina Yushchenko, little else is known about the other presidential spouses. The tradition of the Ukrainian first family was established by Kukma, who became the in-law to his daughter's husband and politician Viktor Pinchuk. During the presidency of Viktor Yanukovych, the first family meaning was taken to the next level, whose son Victor became a parliamentarian of Verkhovna Rada with the same political party affiliation. Presidential awards. The distinction of honorary weapon is awarded by the President. The specific weapon is a 9mm caliber .21.02 pistol with 16 bullets. The body pistol is made of structural steel, with the handle is made of noble wood. The name of the awardee is engraved on the plate. This distinction was established in 1995 under the President Leonid Kuchma, who himself has awarded the most pistols, numbering at 85. From 1995 to 2018, the presidents have issued honorary weapons to 152 persons. Since 2019, no one has been awarded an honorary weapon. List of presidents. Timeline. Living former presidents. As of September 2022, there are 5 living former presidents. The most recent death of a former president was Leonid Kravchuk,